Here's my thoughts with this tf2 or the CS2 cheating problem. There's like three things I'm probably gonna say. It's their cheating problem with tf2 and cs2, and their bot problem. A kind of a solution to it, and my thoughts on like from CS:GO to CS2 and how they copied Overwatch. Not copied Overwatch, more like copied the Blizzard idea of just saying it's a new game, but not really. But first, let's get on to the thought of the cheating thing. So, like one, they here's like a cycle they had, right? So they made the game, right? They make a game, uh, goes on, it's popular, like TF2, CS:GO, and eventually there is CS2. Oops, I put CS22. Whatever. They make game, and then, a couple of years go by, maybe a decade if it lasts that long. I don't know. Actually, probably, maybe with these two, maybe, but like, probably not. And then two, the bots and cheats come in, or cheaters come in, right? It plagues their game. It happened to TF2 like so much to the point where no one can really play it normally without going to community servers from YouTubers and stuff like that. It happened to CS:GO, but it wasn't really like as much as TF2. It was kind of like not as big as this problem was, the CF2. But it did happen in CS:GO, and then now it's happening in CS2 with the bot farmers, the cheating and stuff like that. It's a plague. You don't see it as much as CS2 because they have cracked down on it slightly, but it's still kind of an issue. It affects their games, blah blah blah. They see this, and then three, will make a decision on whether or not they keep the game live enough where they have the store open still, like how COD does it with their old games. If the store is still open for it, keep the game alive for more money. But if not, just get rid of the game entirely and cut the service off, and just let modders itself or people who love the game make a client for it to keep the game alive for older people and people who want to go back into that section. They'll make a decision on whether or not to keep the monetization up for it. Then four, they'll make a new game and repeat the entire thing over and over again. It literally goes right into itself. Make a game, bots happen, cheaters. They see the money or they don't see the money. They make a new game, have all those people come in, cut that game off, cut that older game off, and just force them into this new one that probably no one's probably gonna like, and then it's gonna repeat. They're not gonna fix this. They're not gonna change this, because the anti-cheat's ass. They made it in like some year, and they just left it after they just made it. I don't even know if they even updated it. Did they even update it? Probably not. They'll, they left it, and then after that, they'll go on to new game, and that's it. So that's literally the entire cycle. They make a game, they have bots and cheaters. They just let the anti-cheat deal with it because they don't want to deal with it itself. Manually going into it and fixing the game is just too much work. It's too much hassle. They have to buy a bunch of people to do all this anti-cheat stuff and shit. They don't want to do that. They'll leave the store open probably, and eventually they will just dry that game will dry up and not have money coming in for that company or the farmers, because this also affects the people who buy that game entirely as well. See, too, Valve and the people who bought and cheat and trade and stuff to make money off these games are working with each other, but they also hate each other at the same time. And then they'll make another game, and this shit will happen over and over again. And then this will probably affect their game so much. Their This will affect their store so much to a point where there'll just be a bunch of poor games at this point, and they're not gonna really do much about it. They're probably just gonna do a bunch of horror games and crypto games, and no one's gonna like the store anymore, like how Epic Games does it. Oh, well, I mean, they already like the crypto, so they're just gonna get rid of that. They'll get to a point where the store is gonna be affected so much that no one wants to play any of the Valve made games, and they're just gonna play games from other companies, hell, or even just indie people who made the games themselves, and then and because they care about their game and they'll fix their game, but not this company. No, 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 no. They're completely not helping you at all. Right? So that's their cycle. One, two, three, four. Make a game, have bots and cheaters in it because they know it's gonna happen. Whether or not they make the decision on the monetization for the game to keep it up and alive, so that the farmers and themselves make money, even though they hate each other, they'll still work together with each other because that's basically how this is gonna work. And then make new game that everyone's gonna anticipate, and then just do the same thing over and over again. So here's a solution, right? Here's my thought on like a sort of solution for this, right? If they have game, if they have game, right? And this game is old or new, uh, right? Whether it be old or new, and they kept it up because they have the store still intact because it doesn't really, the store can't be affected unless, it doesn't work or it's just like no one can buy shit anymore. If they have these stores up for these new and old games, right, and they're still making money on it, right, they make money on it, then they're not gonna change, they're not gonna get rid of this game if people are still gonna play their old games and they're making money. If people are gonna play their new games and they're still making money, they're not gonna like change the game. So for this to have a change in their games for TF2 or their new games like CS2, and eventually they did have this in CS:GO. TF2, CS:GO, CS2, and their new game is probably going to happen. If they're going to have a change in this and they're anti-cheat, if they're going to fix it, they got to have no money at all coming in for them. Like no money entirely from their new games and old games. If their old games still have people buying shit, and eventually everyone in the community in this game, whether from people who are coming in and like liking the new game, they're new, and the veterans of this game, the comp, the casuals, like people who make YouTube videos on this shit, have no money coming in for them, they'll either do one of two things. One, get rid of game. Just get rid of the game entirely. They're just gonna cut the game off because damn well that game's so old that they're not gonna really just make a sequel for it because it's kind of pointless. They're already making a sequel. They made a sequel for their CS:GO, which is CS2, which is just copied Overwatch. They just saw what Blizzard did and just copied them. I'll get to that later. They'll get rid of their game. So, but if they have a second option as well, uh, fix small details of the game that does help their botting and cheating problem, but they can also just waste time saying they updated the game by fixing things that are not really necessary, like slash unneeded. Fix small detail that are either the bot or cheating problem, which is probably not going to happen. They'll probably do like they'll they'll fix it, right? They'll do the fix. Oh, oops. They'll do they'll do they'll do the fix, which is this arrow, right? But they'll still go back to the money thing, and if that fix helps if this fix makes people change the option, change their mind about not doing this thing about not giving them money, they'll just stop updating it after that change. But if this keeps happening, they'll do the first time. If this keeps happening, like they keep getting money, they keep not getting money, like they don't get money out from their old games. That's multiplayer, by the way. They'll do another update that fixes this game, which is literally just a small detail. They'll fix this game, which probably the second one will probably be about this, but not really. They'll do the second update, and then they'll go back to this. If this keeps happening a third time, they'll do another one and come back to this. They'll do this as much as they can, and then they'll probably get annoyed that they're not gonna keep doing this because it's like they're wasting time and money on doing these updates for this old ass game that they know damn well that the CEO or whoever made Valve, Gabe Newell, see that Dota 2, maybe not Dota 2, TF2 is like not making them money, and they're just gonna keep these updates constantly because the players are just telling them, we're not buying stuff until you fix the game entirely. They're just gonna get rid of it at some point. They're just gonna do what option one is. They're like, after these small changes, they'll go to this, right? If they do option two, they're just gonna go to option one and get rid of the game, right? It's gonna happen to CS2, and probably it did happen, almost happened. They did it to CS:GO, right? They made an anti-cheat and they fixed small details of the game of CS:GO. Then eventually their cheating problem and their botting problem in the game like became a really huge issue. Same thing with TF2, but TF2 still has people buying stuff from them, which you guys gotta do this. Stop giving them money. Stop buying shit. Stop buying war paints. Stop buying keys. Stop buying crates. Please tell the botters to stop buying shit from them. Like, if the botters and the cheaters keep buying games, buying this shit from the store of TF2 and the scammers as well, if they keep doing this, they're not gonna get rid of the game. They're just gonna keep the store up as long as they can. This is literally all they care about is the store. That's all they see is a profit from this old ass game and their new one. Well, slightly their new one. This new one is kind of like they're like 50-50 if they really care about this game or not. So same thing with their new one. Their new one's gonna be like the same thing with CS2. Not make a sequel of it, but like care whether or not they're gonna like they're gonna like actually keep the storyline up and running long enough for them to make money. This is all they see. Store, new, money. This is a triangle. This is literally how I said in their cycle. They make a game, they have bots and cheats, they decide on whether or not to keep the store open or not, or get rid of it. They make a new game, and that repeats all over again. They're doing this over and over and over and over and over again. Then eventually they'll just get tired of doing the updates and constantly fixing the game that they don't want to do it anymore, and they'll just get rid of it like they did with CS:GO. But they didn't get rid of their servers from CS:GO, which is kind of like them kind of forgetting that they did that, but like they also don't want to do that as well because it's too much work to get rid of servers and they're lazy. They're not like COD lazy, where they're like they'll make a Hub HQ app, which no one really wanted to ask. They'll make a game which is a DLC entirely on Steam and on their own client, so that people have a harder time to return the game if the game is ass, because that's gonna happen with BO6 or Black Ops 6. Their new game Black Ops 6 is gonna flop probably because they know damn well they're just gonna copy the jetpack system from Black Ops 3. They're not really gonna do anything different. They're gonna copy Black Ops 3's jetpack system. They're not gonna change anything. Not changing. They're not gonna add anything new, like a new movement system. They'll keep the sliding thing, I think. They're not gonna add the diving anymore probably. They're gonna keep the sliding thing, but that's a whole different topic. But with Valve, they're gonna do this. If old game keeps making money, they're not doing any of this. But if old game doesn't make money, they'll do small detail. They'll probably think about one of these two options. They'll do small detail fix, which is wasting time, or thinking about quote unquote doing this botting and cheating issue, and then they'll go back to money. They'll keep doing this over and over again until people actually think about buying skins and shit and buying this, going back into the store and buying stuff. But if players actually commit for this, as long as the game is up and running and don't buy anything, which everyone needs to do, this is literally their only option from TF2 is this. That's it. If this doesn't work, like money entirely, everyone entirely, the scammers, the botters, even the cheaters, if they stop buying shit, which is their major demographic, it's literally just people who scam, people who bot, and people who cheat are doing this. That's literally it. That's all they care about is from this demographic. But once they stop giving them money, then they'll actually do any of these two. They still hate the botter and cheaters, but they kind of work with them, to be honest. Once these botter and cheaters stop buying shit from this game because they got bored of it, and they're like, now it's just like, now they see the new game and they see a new opportunity to make way more money than the old game. They'll just stop doing that and they'll just go to that one, and that will fix their game, and now repeat, and that goes back into the cycle. Then at some point those are just gonna get rid of the game because it's like it's so old, it's so pointless to have the game up and running that you're just gonna have people make a client for this game just to keep this game alive enough. And once they find it out, like how they did with COD, like the old CODs, how people made a client for the old CODs, or people are making a client to where you're adding the old CODs all together, they'll either strike it down or just not give a shit about it and just focus on their new game entirely. If the clients are like where you have to get the game and then do that, they won't get on top of it. But if it's a client where it's like it's a game but combining the engines and combining the games and it's free and they're losing money on it and they're making money on the profit of the client, the person who made it, then they'll probably strike it down. But the moment this happens, they'll get rid of old game, they'll go to the new game and see if this happens. If the new game's gonna have this problem, they'll probably just make another game. They'll probably let this dry up within like a couple of years, and then once this is like a couple of years have passed, probably like a decade or two has passed, they'll get rid of the new game that was now an old game, like a CS2. Eventually, CS2 is gonna have this problem. Well, they'll do this first. They'll probably think about doing the small changes fix to the anti-cheat and the game entirely. They'll go back and forth with this, and then eventually they'll be like, "Yeah, we're just gonna get rid of it," and then bam, that's just it. It's literally two cycles. It's a cycle of making a game, and then having the problem cheaters and stuff, and then the second cycle is whether or not it's on their store. These two are totally different, by the way. The store thing is whether or not they're gonna keep the game alive, and the game thing and the other cycle is whether or not people are gonna like the player base and the community is gonna like the game. It's gonna keep playing the game, and then eventually the cheaters and stuff are just gonna go to that game. Here's my thought on CS2, right? CS:GO and CS2, I have to do that, are literally the same game. It's literally just how Overwatch 1 is to Overwatch 2. Oh, it's literally the same game, but Overwatch 2 trying to change details of the game or trying to change the whole feel, trying to make the change to the whole feel of the game, but they fucked that up badly and they just know that it's just the same game. They did that. They just copied Blizzard. That's literally it. CS:GO and CS2 are the same game. It's the same concept of the game. Like it's the same game, but they actually did the changing of things. They changed the engine. They changed the engine, the looks, how the game looks like. The shiny skin on the knife looks amazing. I'll say that. The changes they did were pretty good, but it's not like the changes were like it's a different game. The changes are literally just like them adding a lighting effect to the skins. That's kind of it, really. It's just a lighting effect to the skins, and the engine change is really different. You can say the engine's really good. Let's see, the Source 2 engine is good. It's a good change, and it's for the rest of the game they're gonna use that until eventually they're just gonna make another engine again, and and that's gonna repeat over and over until eventually just like we're gonna stick with this engine and that's it. They change the engine, they change the looks, and they get rid of the skybox. Like skybox, the skybox is gone, and then there's a loadout, which is just they just kind of copied from Valorant. They saw what Valorant did when they copied CS:GO. They did, they did, they did with that, but instead of like having all the guns an option, instead of like having, you know, Valorant copied CS:GO, and then like, well, let's change this and like give them powers. They still did CS:GO and CS:GO still have the same concept. You have the money. You have two. You have two teams that have two different guns. Not everyone has the same gun, but they just kind of added a let-out system because they thought, what's trendy, what's new about gaming and trends and shit. Loadouts. That's it. These are the four things that made the game quote unquote different. That's literally it. There's nothing else to this game. Engine change, which is pretty good. I can say this is pretty good. It's not like a conspiracy theory or some shit like that. This is literally all you can see from the game. The engine change, the looks, which is literally just them adding a skybox and effectively changing the graphics at this point. And getting rid of the skybox because they know damn well that was annoying from players, for players both comped and casual. And some players kind of hated the skybox because you throw a grenade up in the air. If it was high enough, it would hit the ceiling and just come back down. So no one really liked it. So then they just got rid of that entirely. And then they just added this because they thought it was pretty cool and maybe trendy. They just copied Overwatch. So they saw what they did, right? They're like, uh, whoa, let's copy them and say it's a different game. But actually, let's do the small details that they were going to do, but never do. Copy them, but let's copy their homework, but like actually change it a little bit, not much. Let's copy them, but then do this. And that's basically it. That's basically the whole concept of the whole Valve games. Whether it's tf2, CS2, or their new game that's coming out, which probably doesn't come out until like 2026.